You are watching Fugitive Red Eye, and today I thought I'd do a review of the series Wilfred. I will be talking about both versions of Wilfred, the Australian version and the US version, in depth, so do expect spoilers for both of them. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the premise of Wilfred, I'm going to give a quick little rundown here. Wilfred is set up as a buddy comedy of a man and a dog who are best friends. The man sees the dog as a person in a dog suit. He's the only one who sees him like that, whereas everyone else just sees a dog. These are pretty much where the similarities between the two series end. So, to be more specific, I'm going to now specifically talk about the Australian version of the series. In the Australian version of the series, the main role is taken by the character Adam, who is with his girlfriend Sarah, who has a dog named Wilfred. When he first meets Wilfred, he sees him as a man in a dog suit, and of course Sarah only sees him as a dog. So the first season of the Australian version goes on with Adam and Wilfred being rivals and hating each other. Wilfred jealous that Adam is getting Sarah's attention, and Adam trying to stay relevant in Sarah's life. Wilfred's constantly trying to get rid of Adam, and Adam is trying to fight to stay there. That's pretty much the entire premise of the entire first season of the Australian version, but the second season's considerably different. At least that's how it appears, but I'll get into that. So the second season begins with Adam, Wilfred, and Sarah moving to a new house. And in this season, Adam and Wilfred are the best of buddies. It's just a straight-up buddy comedy, and they just go on their little day-to-day adventures in episodic format, which, again, this show is all completely episodic, especially in the Australian version. The Australian version plays itself as a straight-up comedy, nothing more, nothing less. It doesn't try to get serious, and it doesn't try to have a deeper meaning. It's loaded with profanity, weed, and even some nudity in an episode. Not good nudity either, it's old people, it's fucking nasty. The Australian version stars Jason Gann, who is also in the US version, and also the other creator of the show, Adam Zwar. See, Adam Zwar and Jason Gann, if I recall, are actually the creators of the show. I know for a fact Adam Zwar is. So that's the dynamic, is the two of them in the show. Again, it doesn't take itself seriously. It's all nothing but jokes, and there's even an inconsistency between the first and second seasons with Adam's last name. The way the series ends is that Adam and Sarah are about to get married, but it turns out that the Bite Club, as it's called, which Wilfred joined, is like a fight club for dogs. He used that to get Adam arrested for dogfighting. And turns out that the entire second season he was still plotting to get rid of him. So, at the end of it all, Adam goes to jail, and then Wilfred starts tormenting another guy who's hitting on Sarah. So, in that version, it is very clear that Wilfred is real. He's not in Adam's head, because he's now tormenting some other poor soul. And I assume anyone who comes near Sarah is going to be in deep shit because of Wilfred. Now let's talk about the US version. The initial premise is very similar, apart from the fact that rather than Ryan, who is the American equivalent character to Adam, is not in a relationship with Jenna, who is the American equivalent to Sarah. Rather, she's his neighbor, and he has a crush on her. And he tries to kill himself, and then he starts seeing Wilfred. This show is still a buddy comedy at its core, but it's also a dramedy, and it has a lot of deeper meaning and mindfucks. It leaves you questioning what's real and what's not at the end of each episode. Rather than just rolling with it like Adam does, Ryan decides to try and get to the bottom of what Wilfred is and why he sees him. The US version also introduces several other amazing characters, such as Bruce, Ryan's mom, and that's really about it. There's a few others. It's really good. But that's beside the point. Anyway, so the US series is a lot more of a dramedy, like I said, and also kind of a philosophical show in some ways. Because at the end of each episode, it's as if Ryan learned a lesson, but it was in front of him the whole time. Now let's talk a little bit about the ending. Oh boy, do I have some mixed feelings about this. The ending to the US episode ends up with Ryan finally getting to be with Jenna, only to have her leave him for her ex-boyfriend again. Then, Wilfred dies, the dog does, and Ryan finds out he was all in his head. Some people say it's actually left open for interpretation, but They make it seem very clear that Wilfred was all in Ryan's head, although there's a lot of things that don't add up with that being the case. First off, there are several things that Ryan couldn't have possibly known, even with the whole cult explanation they give it. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. Just doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of things that couldn't possibly have happened if Wilfred was entirely in Ryan's head. But anyway, then, of course, when Jenna leaves, Ryan's on his own, and he decides he still wants to be with Wilfred, and Wilfred reappears before him. Now Ryan knows he's a part of his imagination, but they're still best friends. Very anticlimactic and very disappointing ending to an otherwise amazing show. I don't particularly care for the ending to the Australian version either, but at least it didn't take itself seriously enough to make it that disappointing. So now I'm going to compare the two, and which one I think is personally better. So, first off, I personally think that the American version is a lot better for a few reasons, which I'll get into. First off, Elijah Wood. Elijah Wood plays Ryan, and I like me some Elijah Wood. He is a good actor. Second reason, the depth. The whole mindfuck thing and the whole drama aspect of it leaves you questioning a lot of things in the show. And it seems almost philosophical with some of the lessons he learns at the end of each episode. Each season begins basically completely undoing the finale to the previous season. Which means, technically, they could do the same with Season 4 if they ever were to do a 5th season. Make that all be a hallucination or a dream, or find some other new clue, which is one thing that left it open in your head a lot. And it kind of leaves it open to interpretation at the end when you really do think about it. Even though I really despise the ending, especially with Jenna being such a bitch, I think this is a far superior series, just because, to me, I like my comedy to have a little bit of depth. That's why I'm really into shows like BoJack Horseman, Moral Orel, and even the later seasons of Red vs. Blue, excluding the 14th. Now, the Australian version I still enjoy, and I still get a laugh out of it every time I watch it. But the thing is the Australian version seems nothing but more profane humor. Just basically profanity for the sake of profanity, and crazy, zany, over-the-top shit for the sake of crazy, zany, over-the-top shit. Although, like I said, I do absolutely love both versions of the series. There's also a Russian version called Charlie, but I've never seen that, and it doesn't even have Jason Gann in it, so it doesn't have the one consistent character throughout both series. I also liked at the end of the American series, they had a little picture of Adam in the episode before last, I think it was. Or maybe it was a couple episodes before. They showed Adam, and they showed an X through him, and then it showed a circle around Ryan, as if to say, we got him, now we're going for him, as if it's this whole big conspiracy. If you haven't seen Wilfred, I definitely recommend you watch both versions of the show. In particular, I recommend the American version, just because I really love the depth and mindfuckery it has. Like I said, I have kind of spoiled the ending if you've watched through this whole thing, but I still think it's worth a watch. I think I've seen through both versions of the show, probably about 2 or 3 times, and I still loved it every time, so I don't think it's a mistake to watch the show even after you know the ending. I think watching these shows is fantastic, and I really hate that it got canceled and that the 4th season of the American version got pushed back to such a small amount of episodes and on the sister channel FXX. But even then, for a show that was basically put on death row, it turned out really fucking well. If you haven't seen Wilfred, definitely check it out. It's all available on Netflix. I think both versions actually are right now, if I'm not mistaken. I personally have the DVDs of Seasons 1 and 2 of the American version, and, of course, Seasons 1 and 2 of the Australian version. Seasons 3 and 4 are available on DVD, but you gotta order them off Amazon because they're the print-on-demand stuff. But overall, I'd say Wilfred is one of the best buddy comedies I've ever seen, one of the best sitcoms I've ever seen, and the only Australian series I've ever seen. So I recommend watching these back-to-back even. What I usually do is, when I rewatch it, I'll watch all of the Australian version, then I'll watch all of the American version. But I think that about does it for this little review of Wilfred. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I hope I've given good insight onto the series. Let me know if I didn't give enough detail or if I gave too much detail. As always, thanks for watching, and you have a great day.